Hello, it's Sarah. It is the dead of winter here in Wisconsin. So I'm in the shop and hopefully the heater won't kick on because it gets really loud. But I'm in the shop and today, because I don't remember and it's kind of a multi-step process anyway, I'm going to do and I have a new machine, so I'm excited. New, it's like 2 years old. We're gonna do how to use a setting down machine again. And so to do that, I've created a tin cup. I still need to use the burring machine, which is right behind me, in order to then hand set down the seam to prepare it for the setting down machine. But I'm gonna go through all the steps. You don't have to watch me through each piece, but I'll get you started. So here is the silver tin cup. And I have cut it, notched it, soldered this back seam here. Then I have turned the rim. I've wired the rim by using the turning machine, the wiring machine, and then hand setting down, or turning machine, setting down the wire inside that turned edge, and then putting it through the wiring machine. And then now it's ready to go for the, and then I put it through the beading machine, which is this triple bead you see here, which is again mostly for strength, even though it looks decorative. So now I'm going to use the burring machine again to turn the base of this piece at 90 degrees. And actually it's a really big burr right now. So I'm gonna make sure it's an 1/8. You can measure it if you want, but I'm so used to eyeballing it. It's kind of like, yeah, that looks like about an 1/8. So I'm gonna burr the base of this. And you'll see this, when I'm gonna do the base, I'm gonna use a glove to protect my hands because I was taught by Bob how to use my wrists versus my fingers to feed it through the machine, and it goes a lot faster once you're balanced. But first, we're going to make this bottom at 90 degrees using this burring machine. So I'm going to put it so there's just enough pressure. It's right along the backstop. And I'm going to keep the material right along the backstop the entire time. I don't need to add too much pressure on the top corkscrew because you don't want to distort it too much or pull too much material while you're doing it and warping it or making it kind of go wonky on you. The trick is to keep this part that's feeding into the machine from this way as close to the backstop as possible. And as you've noticed, I've been pulling up the material, the actual body closer and closer to 90 degrees. Because this is a cone shape, I won't be able to go a full 90 necessarily without scraping the body of the piece along the top of this. So I'll stop there and I'll check it. And actually it looks pretty good. Can you see the 90-degree angle? I won't need to futz with that over the stake to make it flatter. Something else, do you see how this is uneven from that side right at the seam? That will give you grief. So you want to just trim that up just a tiny little bit so that it's even. All right. So now I'm halfway to using my setting down machine, which is the one over here. Now I'm going to burr my base. So I've pre-cut the circles on the circle cutter at Bob's because I still don't have a circle cutter. We're making one, or we're not making one, we're refurbishing one. I use this glove. I have one at Bob's shop. Bob has one. They get really demolished, but because of where I put pressure on the burring machine, if I didn't wear a protective glove, I would literally slice this vein right open and possibly even right here. So it's offering protection because I put, as you can see, I put all the pressure right here on this part of my thumb. So if you take the glove off, you're putting pressure right here onto the piece. And I always make sure that there's always a side that's got already kind of a tiny little bit of a burr from cutting it, whether it's by hand or on a tool. So I'll put it in here, and we're going again to an eighth of an inch for a burr, so I don't need to adjust the machine again, unless for some reason it doesn't match up. Oops, there we go. So I've put it in, and now I'm gonna put one hand here, one hand here. This finger is just going to kind of create a guide. This is my pressure point. This is my disc. Right now, as you can see, it's almost at a 45 away from your top face here. I don't have it on extreme pressure, because if you do, you can cut the metal, or you can move too much material and end up creating too small of a space to set down your body. So I'm going to start here. This is one of the trickiest parts to tinsmithing, as Bob will also tell you, and you want to keep it bringing it up just like I did the other one. And did I get to 90? I'm almost to 90. Oh. So now my disc has a burr. All right, then what you're gonna be doing is you're gonna put this inside. And you go like this. Oh, the burr is too small. See how much it wiggles? It'll slip out. You can fix that by putting it over the stake. So we're gonna go over here. You don't have to watch me necessarily, but this is good because then you can see how you can reuse this piece. So the burr is too small. It slips. So I'm gonna set it, and I'm going to put it flat. I'm gonna open this up. And now, here's another use of your setting down machine. I have reflattened that burr, but it's a little wonky. So now I can put it into my setting down machine, and I can smooth out my hammer marks. The one thing about a setting down machine is there is no adjusting of the backstop. It is one depth for the most part. All right, so there, another use for your setting down machine. Now what I have also done by doing that is I've stretched the crystal structure of the metal out. You notice this much more when you're working with sheet copper than with tin plate, but you still have to be cognizant of the fact that you've essentially fractionally made this circle even a little bit bigger. So now I have to account for that by making not only my burr bigger, but the fact that that my metal's just stretched out a tiny little bit. So I'm gonna redo what I just did before. Now I'm moving even more metal. I'm gonna show you. I'm moving even more metal now. And notice how wobbly the burr is getting. You're gonna have to smooth that out. Later. It just is. Anytime you move a lot of metal for a large burr, and really what this is telling me is I need to either make a bigger burr on my body, or I need to adjust my pattern to just simply make a smaller blank for the base. And it's definitely giving me grief here because it's such a wide burr. Oh, come on. It's really, really wobbling. All right, I'm gonna stop here and actually check it. Excellent, it's gonna fit. Okay, so now you can see my burr is not 90 degrees. And I honestly am kind of gonna give up here. It's not 90 degrees yet. It's more like a little bit of a 45, but it is really, really not straight. That's impossible to set down without making it look disgusting. So now this is where if you have a tinsmithing stake, you grab it. If you don't, you use a PVC pipe or a block of wood. And I'm gonna grab one that is as close to the diameter of what I'm doing. Which is gonna be this one. All right, this is better. It's a 90, it's straighter. But do you notice this wobble? Now, I'm gonna do it so you can see it. I'm gonna start pressing it so it's flat. And what I'm doing is so that I want my cup to sit flat, obviously. But when I do that, I'm once again displacing my burr, so it's got like little points in places where I don't want them again. So once again, you go back and forth. Sometimes Bob will put these back over the in the burring machine, which you can do too. But really what I'm trying to do is make it a lot easier for me to set down the seam both by hand and by machine. You get to see me wander around the shop. All right, so now I want to get the two burrs to match, and they do. And I'm going to push really hard down when I set this seam down. And actually, I'm not gonna do it because it's too low. I'm gonna do it. But notice I've pushed and I'm doing that. We're gonna go over to the tinner's stake, my V-corn. Constantly rearranging the shop. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna push down flat on the top. And I'm gonna set down the seam. Okay, setting down machine. I have set down the seam all along the bottom, but you can see it's still not completely flat yet because I did it by hand. And yes, I could take time and hundreds more hammer strokes to set it down perfectly smooth with a hammer, very carefully. But when they invented these machines, you got to do the same amount of work at a fraction of the time so you could make more, earn more, grow, you know, commerce. So anyway, I'm gonna put it in here. You don't wanna smash the metal so hard, but you do wanna be firm enough to get it in and flat. So I think I made this too tight. I did. There we go. So technically this is 3 thicknesses, but you do want to be smooth enough, but you don't want to scratch the body. So again, I'm watching to make sure, I did make it still too tight. I'm watching to still make sure that I don't break the metal or the machine. Yeah, I'm still too tight. Always a learning curve, but you don't want it so loose that the metal doesn't actually set down. So you can see the seam is set down and it's now, I think that's a little high, but it's now pretty much flat. And it sits flat, no wobble. Yay, setting down machine. All right, obviously probably questions. I know it's not still like a great visual of all these tools and exactly what I'm doing with my hands. But if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, input, opinions, as always, I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for watching.